Nobody warned me about widowhood in the age of Instagram. It hit me in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in the same armchair where he used to read the newspaper, phone in hand, thumbing through photo after photo of people, smiling, on beaches, in restaurants, on anniversary trips with golden sunlight and perfectly timed laughs. I stared at a filtered image of someone clinking champagne glasses with the caption, "Forever and always," and something in me caved. Not out of jealousy, not quite. It was something lonelier than that. It was the sudden, cold realization that forever had already ended for me, and no one seemed to notice. That's the thing about widowhood in this digital age. It doesn't arrive with casseroles and quiet neighbors stopping by like they used to. It arrives while the world is scrolling. It arrives while your last shared photo together becomes a memory served up by an algorithm, one you didn't ask for. It arrives while the people around you heart and like things but forget how to check in with the one who suddenly stopped posting. It's loss, amplified by silence. No one prepared me for this kind of grieving, the kind where you're surrounded by people, virtually connected but feel more unseen than ever. People still tag me in things, they still comment, but they don't call. They don't knock on the door. They don't sit with the quiet like he used to. They want the version of me that's easy to digest, not the woman who sometimes cries. While folding his old shirt she still can't bring herself to give away, and there's no status update for that. Widowhood used to be a thing people shared with you. Neighbors, church friends, family members who'd bring by tea and sit with the space your spouse left behind. Now it feels like something you're supposed to handle quietly, quickly, and off camera. Like grief makes people uncomfortable unless it comes with a lesson or a glow-up. But some days there's no wisdom. There's just the weight of his absence and the ache of still being here. So I sat there that Tuesday afternoon staring at people's perfect lives, and I whispered, I don't belong here anymore. Not just in the world he left behind, but in this strange, fast, curated world where loss doesn't trend and mourning gets muted. That's where this story begins, not with answers, but with a voice. One that's still finding its way through the noise. One that hopes, somewhere on the other end of the scroll, someone is listening too. Let's talk. Not in hashtags, but in truth. They say time heals, but they never say how long you're allowed to stand still while it does. After the funeral, the messages slow down. After the second week, the phone stops ringing. After the third, the world assumes you're doing better. But no one tells you what to do when you're not. I remember the days after his memorial. The silence was louder than grief. The door didn't open anymore. The house creaked in ways I'd never noticed before. And while I was still waking up each day wondering how to breathe without him beside me, the rest of the world just kept going. Online, friends were updating their profiles, changing their cover photos to sunsets or vacation beaches. Couples I once double-dated with were now announcing retirement plans or grandbabies. People were laughing in filtered reels, posting their date nights. I saw their love stories bloom while mine had abruptly ended, and not one of them knew what to say to me anymore. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just chose not to say anything at all. And it's strange, isn't it? Because we live in an age where everyone shares everything. And yet, I never felt more unseen. Grief doesn't show up well in a status update. It's not photogenic. It can't be captured in a quick caption with emojis or set to a background song. It doesn't sparkle, it settles in, it changes your posture, your eyes, your pace. And it lingers, long after people stop asking how you're doing. I kept scrolling, not out of curiosity, but out of habit. A strange loop of pain and longing. Their lives unfolding, mine frozen. I saw wedding photos, baby announcements, vacations, and brunches. And it all looked beautiful. Too beautiful. Because none of it included the chair across from me still empty, or the breakfast table still set for two. But I didn't want their lives, really. I just wanted to be remembered, not pitied, not messaged once in a while out of obligation, just remembered. I never expected people to mourn with me forever, but I hoped someone might sit beside me, even virtually, and say, I haven't forgotten him. I haven't forgotten you. That kind of presence doesn't show up in comments. It shows up in silence that feels shared. But mostly I was scrolling through a world that had already moved on, and I was still right there. On the porch where we once held hands. On the couch where we watched the same movie for the 100th time. In the photos we took together that no one likes anymore, because they're too old now. Like me, I tried once to share a memory, just a simple photo. It was our anniversary. I posted a picture of our hands together from years ago, resting on a wooden table at some roadside diner we used to love. I wrote something soft, honest. Nothing dramatic, just a few lines about missing his laugh. The post got 3 likes. One was my niece. One was a neighbor I barely knew. And one was a stranger who probably liked it by accident. No one commented. Meanwhile, on the same day, a younger friend posted a gym selfie with a caption about motivation and got 73 hearts and a row of fire emojis. That's when it hit me. Real pain doesn't perform well. Not online. Not here. People are uncomfortable with sadness they can't solve. They'll cheer for a recovery post or a "look how far I've come" caption. But raw, ongoing grief? That doesn't trend. It gets buried under videos of dogs doing tricks and couples doing dances. It's too quiet, too long, too real. I've spent so many days aching to say something, to reach out, to be seen, but stopping myself because I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. I didn't want to be that woman who still posts about her husband 5 years later. I didn't want to seem stuck even though I was still standing in the middle of the life we built together, trying to figure out what to do with all the love that no longer had a place to go. So I stopped posting. I stopped commenting. I became a ghost in my own digital life. Watching, observing, remembering, but never sharing. Because it felt like the world only had room for curated strength, not messy honesty. And that's the loneliness no one talks about. Not just the loneliness of loss, but the loneliness of not being allowed to say you're lonely. It's not that people don't care. It's that grief doesn't fit the format. It doesn't sparkle in stories. It doesn't glow up. It just lives inside you. Quietly. Daily. Deeply. And when the only platform you have is built for noise, grief becomes a whisper drowned out by celebration. So you learn to hold it differently, to honor it without applause, to remember without needing validation. Because widowhood is a long road, and in the age of Instagram, it's mostly a quiet one. But that doesn't mean we stop walking it, and it doesn't mean we walk it alone. It took me a long time to realize that the world wasn't going to come find me, that if I wanted to be seen, heard, or even remembered, I'd have to start showing up again. Not in the way social media demanded, not with perfectly worded captions, or photos that made loneliness look poetic, just honestly, softly, fully human. So one day I reached out, not online, not through a story or a filtered post. I picked up the phone and called an old friend from church. I told her I didn't have anything exciting to share. I just missed the sound of a familiar voice. She laughed and then cried a little and said she had been thinking the same thing but didn't know if I wanted company. That call turned into a coffee visit the next week. Nothing fancy. Just 2 women past their proudest days sitting on a porch drinking lukewarm coffee and remembering the men who used to sit beside us. It was quiet and it was healing. No audience, no approval, just presence. From there I made a list, not of followers or notifications but of names. People I missed, people I used to know well but hadn't spoken to since the funeral. I began writing letters, not emails, not messages, letters. I told them where I'd been, not just physically but emotionally. And slowly replies trickled in. Sometimes just a few lines, sometimes full pages. But every word felt like a doorway opening again. I started sharing again, but not in the curated world of social media. I started talking to people who'd known me before I was a widow, people who remembered my husband's name, people who remembered me. And eventually I met new people too. Other women navigating widowhood, some younger, some older, some still in the rawest part of their grief, others building second chapters they never expected to write. We didn't offer each other fixes, we offered each other truth. That's how you begin again, I've learned, not by pretending you're okay, but by reaching for people who let you not be okay. You don't need to announce it to the world. You just need one person who says, "Me too." That's how community starts. That's how healing begins. And that's how, piece by piece, you start building a life again. Not to replace what you lost, but to honor the fact that you're still here. Not trending, not filtered, but real, and still becoming. I don't scroll as much anymore. It's not because I've given up on the world. It's because I've decided to live more in mine. To live in real time, with real people, in moments that aren't edited for applause. Widowhood in the age of Instagram is a strange thing. You're surrounded by images of love, joy, milestones, and it can feel like you're the only one whose life has paused while everyone else's keeps playing. But here's what I've come to believe. Just because your grief doesn't get likes doesn't mean it doesn't matter. Just because you don't post your pain doesn't mean it isn't sacred. And just because you've lost someone doesn't mean you've lost yourself. There's still a path for you. It's slower, it's quieter, but it's yours, and it's worthy. So if you're watching this now in your own kind of silence, wondering if anyone else understands, let this be proof that you're not alone, that someone else out there knows what it's like to grieve in a world that moves too fast. You don't have to perform. You don't have to be okay yet. You just have to breathe and trust that life, in all its broken and beautiful ways, still has room for you. Because love doesn't end when they're gone. It just changes where it goes. And today, it found its way to you.